Today we discuss living from the end now. This Neville Goddard-based discussion is stimulated based on a quote from a book, The Magic of Thinking Big, David Schwartz, in which he said, "Defeat is only a state of mind and nothing more." So Neville speaks of this. We are going through states. We are traveling through states of mind. All day long, we may be fluctuating into different states of mind. Some states of mind have less resistance towards the end or the vision, in which we do not experience doubt, indecision, fear, frustration from the place of reactivity. Rather, we see it as things that will pass, or that some way, somehow, we can change our interpretation to those elements to bring us back into the ideal state of mind. We've been discussing it, and we've been calling it inner resistance. Now, the inner resistance is revealed via our inner conversations. And this particular discussion here is further stimulated from a video that I released a while back, which I'll put a link in the description to it, which is about the fourth dimensional thinking. And he states the spiritual man speaks to the natural man through the language of desire. The key to progress in life and to the fulfillment of dreams lies in ready obedience to its voice. Unhesitating obedience to its voice is an immediate assumption of the wish fulfilled. Now let's look at that for a moment. Unhesitating obedience to its voice is an immediate assumption of the wish fulfilled. And he says the spiritual man speaks to the natural man through the language of desire. So we have a desire. We want to achieve something, experience in life. That's the desire. We feel it. From this desire, we stimulate a vision, which implies we have this end result. We see it in our mind's eye. Maybe it was a certain kind of house that we wanted to own, as discussed in the last video, where I talked about George Schubel's contributions on how to stimulate the imagination by actually visiting different houses that have the kind of structure, decor, or layout that you want to have so that you can be inspired into your imagination and construct in your mind's eye the ideal house. Now, the moment you visualize or imagine this particular house, or if you're like me, auditory affirm what it looks like by describing it to somebody or myself in my mind's eye, we go into the state of mind reflective of that particular vision. And what we notice is an inner dialogue carries us on the journey to the fulfillment of that vision. And if for whatever reason may be, we go into a different state of mind, we may experience what he is referring to as defeat in the quote that I mentioned earlier. And when we recognize defeat as only a state of mind, then we also recognize what we've been discussing is that we are the ones that are putting an interpretation on some particular experiences or circumstances or conversations that we've had with people that seem to bring us into a certain state of mind, in which we would call that defeat. So we want to encourage intuitive understanding and accurate thinking. Recognize that there's a thought process that is in harmony with the vision. So living from the end implies that if you experience something in your day-to-day journey to the fulfillment of what you desire to experience, and you don't see it as a place of contribution, but rather you are frustrated by it, stressed out by it, then perhaps it's important to evaluate what it is that you're looking at and identify the kind of interpretation you're giving to it so you can change those interpretations. For example, if a person wants an ideal home or a certain level of business success, they engage in that conversation that leads them to the end. However, for whatever reason may be, they find themselves in a different state of mind where now they are doubting their ability to earn or to bring forth the money in some shape or form to buy the house. Or their skills, their behaviors or their ability to produce the entrepreneurial success. Maybe they're looking back at past experiences that they've had in their life in which they tried to build a business, but it didn't work out. So they're imagining this, and when they imagine this, they go into that state of mind, and they feel perhaps that it's not worth trying or some sense of defeat. In that moment, we want to recognize that we have gone into a different state of mind, and also accurately assess and realize that you are actually not that same person that you were back then. You have learned more, you have grown more, you've achieved more. And if you reflect back on how far you have come along on the journey, you'll recognize that you have far more ability now and understanding and awareness now, and ability to think accurately to produce that result. Now, when you start to look at it from that perspective, you start to feel more inspired. And then right then and there, you go back into that ideal state of mind, one that is reflective of the vision. And the inner dialogue that is reflective of the vision continues. Hunches, inspiration, true inner voice conversations lead you down the pathway. If you're an entrepreneur, you might start to have certain ideas of certain kinds of marketing campaigns that you can run. You might notice that there's different ways of positioning your product or service in the marketplace. You'll find that you'll be able to overcome some of the objections and rejections that you are experiencing perhaps in sales. You also find new ideas on how to produce more value in the marketplace. All of this is facilitated from that state of mind and via the inner conversations or what you are imagining as a result of that state of mind, flashed in your mind's eye as hunches and inspirations. Now, to further emphasize this, Neville states, many persons, including myself, have observed events before they occurred. That is, before they occurred in this world of 3 dimensions. Since man can observe an event before it occurs in the 3 dimensions of space, life on Earth must proceed according to plan, and this plan must exist elsewhere in another dimension and be slowly moving through our space. If the occurring events were not in this world when they were observed, then to be perfectly logical, they must have been out of this world. And whatever there is to be seen before it occurs, here, must be predetermined from the point of view of man awake in the 3-dimensional world. So, desires. We receive desires. And we also receive visions on how to express those desires, creative expressions, life expressions. This is what I would also refer to as creative flow. If you're an entrepreneur or you're an artist or you creatively express in any shape or form consciously, then you'll know exactly what he's talking about right here. You have a desire to want to express. And then you find your means of expression and you express, so you paint what you see in your mind's eye. And you become so submerged with the process of articulation through whatever form of articulation, that when you observe the expression after you had articulated, you recognize that you had maintained this state of mind and you never wavered on the assumption of that particular image. Now, if for whatever reason may be, we have what we call inner resistance to perform or to express, then we can see it as an opportunity. As mentioned in one of the recent videos, in which I talked about turning mind into gold, which was borrowed from certain alchemy-based mindset concepts, we talked about actually turning can'ts into can, and that's essentially what we're doing. Can'ts reveal perhaps certain persistent interpretations of ourselves in relation to our expression. Now, this could be in relation to communication expression and relationship expression with others as well. Recognizing that based on these assumptions, we may go into different states of mind. And if for whatever reason may be, we identify with defeat or doubt or anything like that, we recognize that it's not going to hold us back from bringing forth our results. And if we want to experience more flow, we just change the interpretation and go back to the N, in which we experience unwavering, lighthearted faith and conviction, which was discussed in the last video. I'll put a link in the description to that. Now, all of this, as he states, all changes take place in consciousness. The future, although prepared in every detail in advance, has several outcomes. At every moment of our lives, we have before us the choice of which of the several futures we will choose. So the way I like to look at this is that when you set a destination on your GPS, it calibrates it over to revealing maybe some pathways. One with highways, one with tolls, one with side streets. And they take you on different pathways to the same destination. We can also look at it as those different states of mind are representative of the different pathways to the destination. So we still get to the destination in some shape or form because we're committed and we assume that it's done, as he refers to, and as we've been discussing. We've committed to it. We say that's where we're going, that destination. Now, we have a preference in the matter of how we get to the destination. We can pick any one of those pathways, and you can probably even steer off course in which the GPS will redirect you back onto the pathway to the destination. Now, some of us might prefer a more flow-based journey to the destination. Is the path of least resistance. Now, it's not to say that aspects of yourself that were inaccurate interpretations won't be revealed on the journey. It's just that you will find more joy turning those cans into can. Because when you're in flow and you're in an ideal state of mind, as the textbook definition of flow is, it's where challenge meets skill. So if you're encountering any inner resistance, in which we would call that challenge, we're able to rise up to accurate interpretation and, as he states here, change it in consciousness and then go down the pathway that is the harmonious pathway to the destination. Now, one of the reasons why we perhaps don't recognize this or forget this, more accurately put, is what he says here. The habit of seeing only that which our senses permit render us totally blind to what we otherwise could see. To cultivate the faculty of seeing the invisible, we should often deliberately disentangle our minds from the evidence of the senses and focus our attention on an invisible state, mentally feeling it and sensing it until it has all the distinctness of reality. Now, that's done when we assume it is done. That's akin to address of the destination into our GPS. And we know when we look at our GPS, it's done. It says perhaps your route is being calculated, and then it gives you the pathway choices, or it gives you the one pathway to the destination. That's what happens when we affirm that vision. It's done. Now, because what is seen with the five senses, the five sensory experience, is not this GPS, which is within, which is revealed by the inner dialogue, the inner conversations by what he had referred to as the spiritual man. Not only revealing the desire, but stimulating us into imagining something that we actually want to experience and achieve. But also, what it does is it guides us. We call this intuition. Intuition guides us to the destination. Like the GPS guides us to the destination. It tells you where to make a left and where to make a right. Thus, accurate thinking, which is inspired by intuitive understanding of where we are going, is what we want to use as a facilitator to get to the end result. So a person doesn't necessarily have to think a lot or think accurately to get to the destination. They can intuitively guide themselves from within to the destination. There are many people who brought forth the vision that I've spoken to that might not even know how to articulate or reverse engineer what they did to get to the destination. But they always seem to arrive at the destination of their vision, some way, somehow. Now, there are others who can reverse engineer it, put it into diagrams, articulate it, teach others about it, and create step-by-step processes to get to the destination. If for whatever reason may be, we have certain ways of thinking that are revealed about the experiences that we're having, which is our relationship to the different aspects on the journey, which is revealing our concept of self, we can further evolve that concept of self to be in harmony with that end by, as he states here, the only reason you and I are functioning as we are today and are not aware of the greater outlook is simply because we are creatures of habit. And habit renders us totally blind to what otherwise we should see. But habit is not law. It acts as though it were the most compelling force in the world, yet it is not law. So thus we can ascend past what we would call habits, habitual habits of overthinking, identifying with defeat. If for whatever the reason may be, I experience something of a sensation of reactivity or any kind of tension unnecessarily that I feel identified with, immobilized, stagnated by, I reflect upon it and say, there are three things that I could do about this. I can change how I relate to it. I could accept it the way it is, acceptance of what is, just completely don't put any meaning on it, because I know that if I don't put any meaning on it, I will release from the reactivity, and I will move forward in some way, somehow, or actually find the accurate meaning and move forward, such as like a meditation. Or I could do something about it. I have experience, you have experience, we've acquired wisdom. We can revert back to previous wisdom from past experiences and know what to do. So any one of these things, and it depends on the circumstance or the situation or what your experience, can bring you back into the ideal state of mind. Get that inner dialogue flowing that is reflective of the vision. Bring you into a place of can, allow you to transmute the can'ts into can. Pretty much our interpretations that seem to deny the ability to bring forth our end result, which is happening from within ourselves, we're the ones, is revealed on if we were saying something like, I can't do X because of Y. A person might say, I can't build a business because I don't have business skills. Now, looking at it from a more accurate perspective, you would say, okay, I may not be able to do X now because I don't have Y now, but I perhaps could get Y, or I might not need Y to get it. In some way, somehow, I'll be able to do it, such as I've met those that had great ideas, and they partnered with somebody else who was a great salesperson or a great marketer or had a certain operational facility in which they could do the manufacturing. And through that partnership, they were able to bring forth the business success. So here are some potential thinking that we could have in relation to this example and other examples in relation to the journey to bring forth entrepreneurial success. I don't want to ask for what I want because what if I get rejected? So when we look at that, we say, it's implying I can't ask for what I want because of rejected. Now, when we look at that and we accurately assess it, we say, what does rejected really mean? We've identified this and we've discussed this in one of the previous videos where we said that people aren't rejecting you. Nobody's rejecting you. The interpretation is that we believe that they are rejecting us because we realize that we are the only interpreters of our reality. I may suggest something to you, or a person may say something to you, but you have the ultimate power to believe what that person is saying from any different perspective that you want to believe that person is saying it from. And if you believe that that person is rejecting you as in a person, you, and that you're not good enough, then perhaps you want to change that. Because if you change that, what you'll find is you won't go into any kind of related defeat-based states of mind. As a matter of fact, you will remain in your state of mind. And when you remain in your state of mind, you may see it as optimization data. Maybe there's certain positioning or how you communicate about the product or service. Maybe there's some optimizations that you could do to the product or service. So all of these things not only stimulate your mind into creativity for creative expression as an entrepreneur, but will, as going back to the premise of the discussion, allow us to live from the end. Because how are we interpreting? Are we interpreting it from the perspective of it's in harmony and it's in relation and it's in contribution? Or are we seeing it from the perspective of it's not? It implies that I can't have what I want. I'm not good enough, or any kind of meaning that is not actually true, unless we want to believe that it's true. Because we have a preference in the matter of how we interpret the different things or different experiences that we have on the journey. Another one is, I can't go for what I want because I don't know what I do if I fail. So if a person says that failure is something, again, that implies that you're not good enough, we want to understand that what we refer to traditionally as failure is, again, something that reveals how we can recalibrate the GPS over to the destination. Now, I'm a fan of this process. It's called Socratic Questioning. And so I work with something that is based on this to help me identify what this inaccurate thinking is that seems to bring me into different states of mind. And I can change my interpretation to those aspects simply by asking these questions. Number one, what is the meaning that I'm assigning? Number two, are there different meanings that could be assigned? There's infinity meanings to assign to anything. Even though words have meanings, we also, within ourselves, have our own interpretations of those particular words. For example, when you say the word money to one entrepreneur, they may find themselves stimulated to bring forth more creative expression and value. You may share that word money with another entrepreneur, and they might find themselves feeling insecure around the concept of money. So both are assigning meanings from their concept of self and how they relate to the different aspects of the journey, such as money. So thus there are different meanings. We also want to ask, are there other examples from your past that support the different meanings that you want to identify? We'll actually go through an example. Also, are there other examples from others that support the different meanings? So we could borrow meanings from others. When we watch videos like this, or we listen to this in a podcast, or however you're consuming this information, or you're reading books, or you're listening to somebody communicate, what they're sharing with you is different meanings that they have on the different aspects on the journey. And they're perhaps sharing their stories with you or giving examples, and if they're relatable to you, then perhaps you'll find yourself identifying with some of those meanings. And if those meanings are empowering and uplifting and in contribution to the vision, you'll find yourself having less resistance within or identification with defeat or doubt-based ways of experiencing the journey to the destination. And again, we want to look at it as we've already calibrated in our GPS where we're going. We're already on the journey. So in a way, we're already living in the end. The question is, are we dwelling in certain states of mind that seem to not be related and bring forth certain fears, doubts, and indecision-based associations? So it's not necessarily the fears, doubts, and indecision that holds us back, but it's our identification with those elements that creates unnecessary resistance, thus sending us different pathways or different roads, which seems to make the journey more convoluted, stressful, and unnecessary as far as aspects go of the journey to the destination. We create more unnecessary complexity. So we also want to ask, what are the long-term implications of the new meaning? Because when we bring forth a empowering meaning, for example, if you say that I am valuable, I am worth what I desire. Now, this has long-term effects, because the long-term effect of having a higher degree of self-confidence is when you have future visions that you bring forth, you'll have less identification with fears, doubts, indecision, or defeat-based states of mind, because you have reference experience. Let's use an example. If someone were to say, I can't go down the entrepreneurial pathway and find entrepreneurial success because I don't have the skills. That's the meaning. They've identified the meaning. What are different meanings? Well, here are some suggestions of different meanings that you can have that are based on my experience of working with different entrepreneurs. Some entrepreneurs focus on certain aspects of the business, and they hire or partner with others to take care of the other aspects of the business. Thus, they don't need to know everything. They might only need the idea, or they might only need the marketing skills or the sales skills. I've met entrepreneurs that are very proficient at selling, and they don't have a desire to come up with an idea, but some way, somehow, they meet somebody who has the idea. and they resonate with that idea, and they believe in that idea, and they go out and they sell that idea, and the business grows. Now, what if you're more of an operations person, and you like the operation aspect of the business, the logistics and so forth, but you don't necessarily have a desire to go out and sell? But then the truth is that there are people out there that want to do the sales stuff or the marketing stuff or the idea generation stuff, the innovation. And they're looking for somebody to work through the operations, take care of the operations piece. So as we go through this, a person might find they are releasing from the inner resistance of the interpretations between what shows up on the journey in relation to the vision, because their vision was to see themselves building a successful entrepreneurial venture, earning a certain amount of income, living a certain lifestyle. And now as they change their interpretations because they're finding different meanings to it, they identify with those interpretations and they find themselves then maintaining that ideal state of mind. Another one is, are there other examples from your past that support the different meanings? So we say, okay, well, we had experiences in our past where we had a vision and we brought it forth. We didn't know how we were going to bring it forth. However, we met a certain person, or we came across a certain information, or some way, somehow, we were able to pool certain resources together in the most unexpected ways, and even some logical ways in combination. But I was able to bring it forth. So then this also can be the case with this particular experience, the journey to the destination. And again, when we identify with something like this, we feel less resistance. And we allow ourselves to go back into the ideal state of mind that is reflective of the vision, the identity. Number 4, are there other examples from others that support the different meanings? And as discussed in the last video, one of the things that I enjoyed doing a lot in my earlier stages of the entrepreneurial journey was to read biographies or different books of other entrepreneurs as they shared their different experiences on the journey, in which I related to them because I know I was going through the same things, or I could go through the same things. And they were sharing their stories and giving examples of the different meaning that they were associating. And they found the accurate meaning because they were able to ascend past some of those interpretations of defeat by seeing things from a different perspective. And so I had them in my mind. And anytime that I found myself in a place where I would go into that state of mind, which we would call defeat-based state of mind, I would then bring up one of those interpretations and identify with their interpretations, and I would release from it, and I'd go back into the flow. And then also what the long-term implications are for the meaning, because I don't want this to be a reactive thing where I'm constantly looking for meaning and changing the meaning all day long. I'm looking at deep meaning. And the deepest meaning that we've been discussing, which is one of my favorite topics from Neville's discussions, is no one to change but self, changing the concept of self. That means we want to find the meaning that brings us into a higher level of self-confidence, self-esteem, and empowerment. For example, the entire statement, I can't do X because of Y, can be changed to, I can do whatever I want to do if I want to do it. Or, I might not be able to do X because of Y, but I don't need Y to get X. Or you simply remove the word can't out of the equation. You ensure that, as mentioned in the last few videos, we want to identify what we are saying I am to. And we might not want to say I am to a can't-based sentence. Now, when we do it at that deep level, we're experiencing deep identity level change, concept of self change. And then as a result of that, what we'll find is then you'll have more of a flow-based journey to the destination. You'll find less of those limiting interpretations show up on the journey, because what we're doing is we're changing at a deep belief level. Now, all of this is designed to help us live in the end, now, in this moment. And if we had identified with a different state of mind that causes us to believe that we won't bring forth the success that we want, then we recognize that it's an interpretation. And we can also receive the accurate interpretation from within. As he had stated, and I bring this up a lot in my discussion, connecting back to your true inner voice. As he states, the spiritual man speaks to the natural man through the language of desire. The key to progress in life and to the fulfillment of dreams lies in ready obedience to its voice. So we listen to the desire and we listen to the voice of that state of mind or the vision or that desire that reveals the flow-based pathway towards the destination. And we maintain connection with this. We call this building a relationship with our subconscious and our intuition. And I remember in the earlier stages of my entrepreneurial journey, I would listen to the commencement speech by Steve Jobs a lot, repeatedly, and he would say, follow your heart and intuition. They somehow know what you want to become. Knowing that we are the ones giving interpretation and meaning to whatever, we can assess what kind of opinions we want to identify with. And we don't need to identify with the opinions of any kind of doubt-based programming if we don't want to. Because the inner voice guides us to the destination, so we listen to it, number one. And number two, we recognize that we are the interpreter. So asking questions like this can help us accurately interpret the different experiences that we're having on the way to bringing forth our vision. And as a result of this, we have a higher degree of accurate thinking, which is facilitated by that intuitive understanding that guides us to the end. And as we do this, we continue to dwell and live in the end, and it becomes a way of life, a way of being. And it's a natural way of being. As we recalibrate to this natural way of being and remain in this way of being, we feel more like how we really want to feel. We feel like ourselves. If you want to copy this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.